Why do we fear the dark? Imagine being a child again, lying in bed as shadows stretch across your room. The faint creak of the floorboards or the whisper of wind outside sends your heart racing. You pull the covers tighter, half convinced that something unseen is lurking just beyond the edge of the darkness. What is it about the absence of light that makes us feel so vulnerable? This primal reaction to the dark isn't unique to childhood. It's embedded deep within our collective psyche, a remnant of humanity's earliest days. Fear of the dark stems from evolutionary biology, an ancient survival mechanism honed over millennia. Early humans relied heavily on sight to navigate their surroundings and detect potential threats. In daylight, they could spot predators, rivals, or other dangers with relative ease. But at night, when visibility plummeted, they became more exposed, more susceptible to harm. Darkness obscured not only what was around them, but also what might be approaching. A predator stalking silently, an enemy lying in wait. Over time, this instinctual fear of reduced visibility became hardwired into our brains, triggering the fight-or-flight response whenever light faded. Even today, traces of this primal programming linger. Think about how dimly lit spaces can evoke unease, whether it's walking through an unlit parking garage or sitting alone in a candlelit room. Our bodies still respond as if danger lurks nearby, even though modern life has largely eliminated the tangible threats faced by our ancestors. But here's where things get intriguing. Our world no longer harbors saber-toothed tigers or shadowy invaders. So why does this fear persist? It suggests that much of what we fear exists not in reality, but in the stories we tell ourselves. The human imagination fills the void left by darkness, conjuring up worst-case scenarios and phantom menaces. A creaking floorboard becomes an intruder. A flickering street lamp casts eerie silhouettes that morph into monsters. These irrational fears highlight the power of perception and narrative in shaping our emotional responses. They also raise deeper questions. How much control do we truly have over our minds? Can fear ever be fully conquered, or is it destined to shape us in ways both subtle and profound? As we delve further into the psychology of fear, let's explore one of its most fascinating paradoxes: how something so universal can also be deeply personal. Take a moment to reflect on this. What do you fear most, and why? The paradox of safety versus danger. Think about roller coasters, the stomach-dropping plunges, the dizzying loops, the wind whipping past your face. These machines are engineered to simulate danger, yet deep down, you know you're strapped in securely, hurtling along a track designed with precision and safety in mind. So why does the experience feel so thrilling? Why do humans crave scenarios that mimic fear while simultaneously seeking reassurance of their safety? This paradox lies at the heart of our complex relationship with fear. At its core, this phenomenon ties back to dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and reward. When we engage in activities that evoke controlled doses of fear, like riding a roller coaster or watching a horror movie, our brains interpret these sensations as exciting rather than life-threatening. Dopamine floods our system, creating a rush of exhilaration that feels intoxicating. It's not the danger itself, but the perception of risk that triggers this response. However, if the situation crosses into genuine threat territory, if the roller coaster malfunctions or the horror leaps from screen to reality, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, takes over. Adrenaline surges, preparing the body for fight or flight. The difference between excitement and terror hinges on whether we perceive control over the outcome. This razor-thin line between thrill and dread reveals how subjective fear truly is. For some, skydiving represents the ultimate adventure, a chance to soar weightlessly above the earth. For others, it's an unimaginable ordeal, fraught with panic and dread. These divergent reactions stem from individual experiences, cultural conditioning, and even genetic predispositions. Some people are naturally more inclined toward risk-taking, while others prioritize caution above all else. Yet regardless of where we fall on this spectrum, the allure of controlled fear speaks to something universal within us, a desire to test our limits without stepping too far into harm's way. But what happens when fear slips out of our control? When it ceases to be a fleeting thrill and becomes a constant presence, gnawing at our thoughts and dictating our actions? Chronic fear transforms a once useful survival tool into a destructive force, wreaking havoc on both body and mind. Let's examine how prolonged exposure to fear reshapes us and what it means to live under its shadow. Pause for a moment and consider. Have you ever felt trapped by your own fears? The biology of panic attacks. Picture this. You're sitting quietly, minding your own business, perhaps reading a book or scrolling through your phone, when suddenly, without warning, your chest tightens. Your heart begins to race as if it's trying to escape your ribcage. You feel lightheaded, maybe even dizzy, and an overwhelming sense of suffocation grips you. It feels as though you're facing imminent death, yet there's no external threat in sight. Welcome to the bewildering and often isolating world of panic attacks, a phenomenon where the body reacts as though under mortal danger, despite being perfectly safe. Panic attacks arise from a glitch in the brain's threat detection system. Normally, the hypothalamus, the region responsible for maintaining homeostasis, monitors internal and external cues to determine whether we're in danger. When it perceives a threat, real or imagined, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggering the release of cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones prepare the body to either flee or fight by increasing heart rate, sharpening focus, and redirecting blood flow to muscles. However, during a panic attack, this system malfunctions. Harmless stimuli, like a rapid heartbeat after climbing stairs, or even anxious thoughts themselves, are misinterpreted as life-threatening dangers. The result is a full-blown physiological response that seems to come out of nowhere, leaving sufferers feeling powerless and confused. While panic attacks are undeniably terrifying, they also reveal the extraordinary power of perception. If the mind can generate such intense physical reactions based on nothing more than misinterpreted signals, what does this say about the boundaries between thought and reality? Could understanding this process empower us to rewire our responses, turning fear into a tool for growth rather than paralysis? For instance, learning to recognize the early signs of a panic attack allows individuals to intervene before it spirals out of control, using techniques like deep breathing or grounding exercises to restore balance. Speaking of perception, let's dive deeper into how fear distorts reality, blurring the lines between imagination and truth. Fear doesn't just hijack our bodies, it warps our senses, making it difficult to discern what's real and what's not. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine. What would happen if you couldn't trust your own senses? How might fear shape the way you see the world around you? The illusion of control. We all want to believe we're in charge of our lives, that we hold the reins, steering ourselves through decisions big and small with confidence and clarity. But what happens when fear strips away that illusion? Consider someone who is terrified of flying. They've read the statistics. They know airplanes are statistically safer than cars, yet their palms sweat at the mere thought of boarding a plane. Their rational mind knows the odds are in their favor, but their emotional brain refuses to listen. Why does this happen? What is it about fear that undermines our sense of control? Fear thrives in uncertainty, feeding on the unknown and amplifying its perceived dangers. When faced with ambiguous situations, whether it's stepping onto an airplane, starting a new job, or navigating a global crisis, the brain defaults to worst-case scenarios. This tendency, known as negativity bias, evolved over millennia to protect our ancestors from potential threats. In prehistoric times, assuming the rustling leaves signaled a predator rather than the wind was far safer than dismissing it altogether. However, in modern contexts where life or death stakes are rare, this same mechanism often leads to irrational behavior. Fear distorts logic, convincing us that unlikely outcomes are inevitable, while overshadowing evidence to the contrary. If fear clouds judgment, then true control lies not in eliminating fear, an impossible task, but in learning to manage it. Techniques like mindfulness allow us to observe fear without becoming consumed by it, creating space for rational thought to emerge. Cognitive reframing helps shift our perspective, transforming "what if something goes wrong" into "what if everything goes right?" These tools empower us to navigate uncertainty with greater resilience and composure. But here's an intriguing twist. What if fear could actually enhance focus and clarity rather than diminish them? Could leaning into fear unlock hidden strengths or sharpen our ability to make decisions under pressure? Take a deep breath and let go of the need to control everything. Sometimes, embracing fear opens doors we never knew existed, doors that lead to growth, insight, and unexpected opportunities. Ready to find out how? Survival instincts, the first fears. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, gazing down at the jagged rocks far below. Your heart begins to race, your palms grow clammy, and an overwhelming urge to step back takes hold before you even realize why. This primal instinct, fear of heights, isn't just a fleeting discomfort. It's one of humanity's oldest survival tools. But where did these first fears originate? What ancient forces shaped our innate aversion to danger? Survival instincts are hardwired into our DNA, forged over millions of years of evolution. Early humans lived in a world rife with threats, predators lurking in shadows, venomous creatures hiding in tall grass, and treacherous landscapes that could spell doom with a single misstep. Those who avoided perilous situations, like falling from cliffs or venturing too close to snakes, were more likely to survive long enough to reproduce and pass on their genes. Over time, these behaviors became ingrained in our biology, embedding themselves as automatic responses designed to keep us alive. Fear of heights, for example, isn't about the height itself, but rather the risk of falling, a genuine hazard for tree-dwelling ancestors navigating precarious branches. Interestingly, not all survival instincts serve us well in the modern world. Take the fear of public speaking, one of the most common phobias today. On the surface, this fear seems irrational. After all, no physical harm is imminent when addressing a crowd. Yet, its roots likely trace back to ancestral fears of social rejection. In tight-knit hunter-gatherer communities, being ostracized meant losing access to food, protection, and companionship, essentially a death sentence. Though society has evolved dramatically since then, our brains still respond as if exclusion carries the same dire consequences. By reframing such fears through the lens of evolutionary psychology, we can begin to see them not as irrational quirks, but as remnants of adaptive traits that once ensured survival. But what about fears that seem entirely disconnected from practical concerns? Why do some people dread harmless spiders or feel paralyzed in confined spaces? To understand these seemingly inexplicable anxieties, we must delve deeper into how predators in the night and the environments they inhabited shaped the human psyche. Their echoes linger within us today, whispering warnings across generations. Let's explore how these ancient fears continue to influence us and why they persist despite their diminished relevance. Predators in the night. How fear shaped humanity. Close your eyes and picture a dark forest, shadows shifting just beyond the flickering glow of firelight. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the low growl of a predator stalking its prey. This scene wasn't fiction for early humans. It was a nightly reality. Could our modern fear of the dark be rooted in these ancient encounters? What role did predators play in shaping not only our survival strategies, but also the very fabric of human psychology? Early humans lived alongside apex predators like lions, wolves, and bears, creatures that saw them not as equals, but as potential meals. Darkness posed a unique threat because it obscured vision, robbing our ancestors of their primary sense for detecting danger. Unable to see clearly, they became vulnerable to ambushes or stealthy attacks. Over millennia, fear of the dark evolved as a protective mechanism, ensuring survival by keeping our ancestors alert during the hours when visibility dropped. Sleep itself had to adapt. Humans likely developed fragmented sleep patterns, waking frequently throughout the night to monitor their surroundings. This hypervigilance wasn't paranoia, it was a matter of life and death. Even though we no longer face nocturnal predators in the same way, the remnants of this primal fear persist. Many modern phobias seem irrational at first glance, yet they may have deep evolutionary roots. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders, and cynophobia, fear of dogs, for example, might stem from ancestral encounters with venomous arachnids or aggressive canines. These fears highlight how survival mechanisms once crucial for staying alive have been passed down through generations, lingering in our collective psyche long after their original purpose faded. The fact that such fears remain so visceral underscores how deeply ingrained they are and how powerfully they continue to shape our behavior. While individual fears often focus on physical dangers, fear also wields immense influence over social dynamics. It shapes hierarchies, dictates relationships, and even determines how societies organize themselves. Let's delve into how fear operates within human interactions and why it has the power to both unite and divide us. The role of fear in social hierarchies. Have you ever felt intimidated by someone in authority? A stern boss, a strict teacher, or even an influential peer? That uneasy feeling isn't just discomfort. It's fear quietly weaving its way into the fabric of social interaction. Throughout history, fear has been a powerful force in maintaining order and enforcing power structures. But how does this dynamic unfold in everyday life, shaping not only societies, but also our personal relationships? Fear operates subtly within social hierarchies, often cloaked in respect or deference. Leaders, whether they're CEOs, politicians, or community figures, use fear to command obedience and maintain control. They might wield threats of punishment, exclusion, or loss of status to ensure compliance. Followers, in turn, may comply not out of genuine admiration, but out of a desire to avoid negative consequences. This delicate balance between authority and submission creates stability within groups, ensuring cohesion and functionality. However, when unchecked, this same mechanism can lead to exploitation, manipulation, and oppression. History is rife with examples of leaders who used fear to consolidate power, stifling dissent and innovation in the process. The implications of this dynamic are profound. When fear becomes a tool of domination, it stifles creativity and suppresses individuality. People become hesitant to voice their ideas or challenge the status quo, fearing retribution or ridicule. On the other hand, healthy doses of fear, such as accountability or constructive criticism, can foster responsibility and cooperation. For instance, employees who fear falling short of expectations may be motivated to excel, while students who respect a teacher's authority may strive for academic success. Striking this balance is crucial for creating functional societies where individuals feel both secure and empowered. But what happens when fear turns inward, shaping how we view ourselves and our place in the world? Fear doesn't just influence external hierarchies, it permeates self-perception, teaching lessons that linger long after the moment has passed. Let's shift our focus to examine how fear acts as a teacher, guiding us through life's challenges and shaping our growth. Take a moment to reflect. What lessons has fear taught you? Fear as a teacher. Lessons from ancestors. Every scar tells a story, not just of pain, but of growth. Fear, too, leaves indelible marks on our psyche, shaping who we are and guiding us toward resilience and adaptability. From fire-wielding cavemen to astronauts venturing into the vast unknown of space, fear has been one of humanity's most enduring teachers. It pushes us to confront challenges, innovate solutions, and ultimately evolve. But how exactly does fear serve as a teacher? And what lessons can we learn from its presence in our lives? Fear is a powerful motivator, driving action when complacency might otherwise prevail. When faced with danger or uncertainty, humans have consistently risen to the occasion, finding ways to overcome obstacles. Consider early humans huddled around their first controlled fires. Their initial fear of wild beasts prowling in the dark likely spurred them to master this life-changing tool. Fire not only provided warmth and protection, but also transformed how they cooked food, navigated landscapes, and interacted with their environment. Similarly, Many modern advancements, from vaccines to renewable energy, stem from fears of disease, war, or environmental collapse. In each case, fear acted as a catalyst, propelling humanity forward by demanding innovation and adaptation. Yet, fear's lessons are not always straightforward. While it can inspire greatness, unchecked fear can also paralyze, trapping individuals in cycles of anxiety and avoidance. The key lies in learning to harness fear constructively, understanding its dual nature as both destructive and transformative. By reframing fear as a guide rather than an enemy, we unlock its potential to push boundaries and foster growth. For example, artists channel fear into creativity, entrepreneurs use it to anticipate risks, and athletes leverage it to sharpen focus during competition. Each scenario demonstrates how fear, when understood and managed, becomes a force for progress rather than stagnation. As powerful as fear can be, it sometimes lingers long after its usefulness fades, embedding itself in cultural narratives and familial legacies. Let's explore why certain fears persist across generations, shaping cultures and families alike. What echoes of ancestral fears still resonate within us today? Why do so many people share common fears? Heights, snakes, enclosed spaces, even if they've never personally encountered these dangers? Why does a person who has never seen a snake recoil in terror at the mere thought of one? The answer lies not just in individual experience, but in the emerging field of epigenetics, which explores how environmental factors can leave lasting imprints on our genetic makeup. These imprints, passed down through generations, shape our susceptibility to fear in ways we're only beginning to understand. Epigenetic changes occur when stressful or traumatic experiences alter gene expression without changing the underlying DNA sequence. For example, ancestors who lived in environments teeming with venomous snakes may have developed heightened fear responses as a survival mechanism. Over time, this fear left molecular marks on their genes, influencing how future generations process similar threats. While the specific memory of encountering a snake might not be inherited, the predisposition to fear it could linger, manifesting as an instinctual aversion. This phenomenon explains why certain phobias feel almost hardwired into our biology, even when no direct trigger exists in our personal lives. The implications of this are profound. If fears can be passed down through generations, then healing from them requires more than addressing individual experiences. It demands confronting collective fears and intergenerational trauma. Consider communities that have endured war, displacement, or systemic oppression. The scars of these events don't vanish with time. They echo across generations, shaping behaviors, relationships, and worldviews. Understanding this dynamic raises ethical questions about responsibility and resilience. How do we break cycles of inherited fear? Can acknowledging and processing ancestral wounds help us reclaim agency over our emotional landscapes? Speaking of trauma, let's dive deeper into its shadowy impact on the human psyche, and how unresolved fear can haunt entire lifetimes. What happens when fear doesn't fade, but becomes a permanent fixture, shaping how we see ourselves and the world around us? The shadow of trauma, epigenetics and fear. Trauma casts a long shadow, stretching far beyond the individuals who experience it firsthand. Consider the children of Holocaust survivors, many of whom exhibit heightened anxiety levels despite never having lived through the horrors their parents endured. Or think about communities that have faced systemic oppression or natural disasters. Decades later, the echoes of those traumas still reverberate in the lives of subsequent generations. How does trauma ripple through time, shaping not only personal identities but also collective experiences? The answer lies in how trauma alters brain chemistry and stress response systems, leaving lasting imprints on mental health. When someone undergoes severe trauma, their body's stress mechanisms become hypersensitive, flooding the system with cortisol and other hormones associated with fear and survival. Over time, these changes can embed themselves into the biological framework, influencing gene expression without altering the DNA sequence itself, a process known as epigenetic inheritance. For instance, if an ancestor survived famine or war, their descendants may inherit a predisposition toward heightened vigilance or chronic anxiety, as though primed to face similar threats. This intergenerational transmission of fear highlights the deep interconnectedness of human experiences across lifetimes. Understanding the link between trauma and epigenetics offers both insight and hope for breaking cycles of inherited fear. Therapeutic interventions like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, aim to rewire neural pathways, helping individuals process unresolved trauma and restore balance to their stress responses. Similarly, fostering awareness of ancestral wounds allows families and communities to confront shared fears collectively, creating space for healing and resilience. By addressing the roots of inherited trauma, we take crucial steps toward reclaiming emotional freedom, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Healing begins with awareness, but what if fear itself could become a source of strength? Let's turn our attention to Freud's theories and uncover the complex relationship between fear and identity. How do primal instincts shape the way we see ourselves and navigate the world? Sigmund Freud once described the human psyche as a battleground, a constant tug-of-war between primal desires, the ID, rational thought, the ego, and moral constraints, the superego. Fear often emerges when these forces clash, creating internal tension that feels both thrilling and forbidden. Picture standing at the edge of a decision, perhaps leaving a stable job to pursue a risky dream, or speaking your truth despite potential backlash. These moments reveal the delicate interplay between desire, reason, and morality, shaping not only our choices, but also our deepest fears. The ID operates on raw instinct, seeking immediate gratification without regard for consequences. It craves pleasure, validation, and survival, driven by emotions like fear of rejection or loss. The superego, on the other hand, acts as an internalized moral compass, imposing societal rules, ideals, and expectations. It instills guilt or shame when we stray too far from its rigid standards. Caught in the middle, the ego serves as the mediator, striving to balance these opposing forces while navigating reality. In this dynamic, fear becomes a tool for maintaining equilibrium. For example, fear of failure might stem from the superego's harsh expectations, demanding perfection and punishing imperfection with self-criticism. Conversely, fear of rejection could reflect the ID's insatiable need for validation, dreading isolation or abandonment. Understanding this triangular conflict sheds light on the origins of our fears. Are they rooted in external pressures, such as societal norms or familial expectations? Or do they arise from unresolved inner conflicts, where primal urges collide with moral judgments? By identifying the source, we gain insight into how fear operates within us. This awareness empowers us to untangle the web of fear, reclaiming control over our thoughts and actions instead of being swept away by unconscious forces. But what if the root of our fears lies not in external influences or conscious conflicts, but in the shadowy depths of our unconscious minds? Let's explore Carl Jung's concept of the shadow archetype and uncover the hidden parts of ourselves that fear exposes. What truths might we discover lurking beneath the surface? Jung's shadow archetype. Embracing the unknown. Carl Jung believed that every person carries a shadow, a hidden repository of repressed emotions, desires, and fears that linger just beneath the surface of consciousness. Think of it as the dark side of the moon, always present but rarely seen. What happens when we confront this shadow? Can we transform its darkness into light, or will it continue to shape us in ways we don't fully understand? The shadow contains aspects of ourselves that we deem unacceptable or undesirable, traits like anger, jealousy, greed, or vulnerability. These qualities are not inherently bad. They become problematic only when we deny their existence, pushing them into the unconscious. When left unacknowledged, these suppressed parts of ourselves manifest in unexpected ways. For instance, someone who fears public speaking may actually dread being judged because they have rejected their own imperfections, projecting their self-criticism onto others. Similarly, irrational fears, like phobias or social anxieties, often stem from unresolved conflicts within the shadow, where buried emotions resurface as distorted threats. Confronting the shadow requires immense courage, as it forces us to face what we've spent years avoiding. Yet, the rewards of this process are profound. By integrating these fragmented pieces of ourselves, we achieve greater self-awareness and wholeness. Instead of fearing our shadow, we begin to see it as an ally, a guide that reveals the parts of us yearning for acknowledgement and healing. This transformation turns fear from an enemy into a teacher, showing us how to embrace our full humanity without shame or judgment. In doing so, we unlock deeper levels of authenticity and resilience, learning to navigate life with greater clarity and compassion. Integration begins with awareness, but how do we learn to fear in the first place? Let's examine behaviorism and conditioning, two powerful mechanisms through which fear takes hold in our lives. Pause for a moment. What fears have you learned over time? How might understanding their origins help you reclaim control? Behaviorism and conditioning. Learning to be afraid. Imagine a child who touches a hot stove and burns their hand. The pain is sharp, immediate, and unforgettable. From that moment on, the child instinctively avoids stoves, associating them with the searing memory of injury. This simple yet powerful example illustrates how fear is learned through experience, a process rooted in behaviorism and conditioning. But what about fears that don't stem from direct encounters? How do we come to dread things we've never personally experienced? Behavioral psychologists like Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner revealed the mechanics behind this phenomenon. Through classical conditioning, a neutral stimulus can become tied to an aversive one, creating a fear response. For instance, if a bell consistently rings just before an electric shock is administered, eventually the sound of the bell alone will trigger anxiety, even without the shock present. Humans undergo similar processes, often developing phobias through vicarious learning. Watching someone react fearfully to spiders, heights, or dogs can teach us to associate those stimuli with danger, even if we've never had a negative encounter ourselves. Social and cultural influences further reinforce these learned fears, embedding them deeply into our emotional scripts. Conditioned fears are stubborn, lingering long after their original purpose has faded. However, they are not immutable. Techniques like exposure therapy aim to dismantle these associations by reintroducing the feared object or situation in a controlled, safe environment. Gradual desensitization allows the brain to rewire its response, replacing fear with familiarity. Understanding the mechanics of conditioning empowers us to take charge of our emotional narratives, rewriting scripts that no longer serve us. While conditioning explains how fears form, it doesn't fully account for why they persist, even when logic tells us they're irrational. Cognitive dissonance offers insight into this paradox, revealing how conflicting beliefs and realities create fertile ground for fear to thrive. Let's delve into the tension between belief and evidence, uncovering how fear exploits the gaps in our reasoning. Take a moment. What fears linger in your life despite knowing they're unwarranted? Cognitive dissonance, when beliefs clash with reality. Cognitive dissonance occurs when our beliefs contradict our actions or experiences, creating a mental discomfort that demands resolution. Consider someone who knows smoking is harmful, yet continues to light up daily. To ease this internal conflict, they might downplay the risks. "I've been fine so far," or "it helps me cope with stress," or double down on their habit by justifying it as unavoidable. This psychological tug-of-war isn't limited to smoking. It permeates countless aspects of life. But how does fear play into this dynamic? What happens when the stakes feel too high to confront the truth? Fear amplifies cognitive dissonance by heightening the emotional cost of change. For instance, acknowledging the realities of climate change might require significant lifestyle sacrifices, reducing energy consumption, altering dietary habits, or advocating for systemic reforms, all of which can feel overwhelming. Rather than confronting these fears head-on, many people deny the evidence altogether, clinging to comforting illusions like, "it's not that bad," or "someone else will fix it." Similarly, Fear of failure might lead someone to avoid pursuing their dreams, convincing themselves they're content with mediocrity rather than risking disappointment. In each case, fear acts as both a barrier and a motivator, driving us to protect our self-image even at the expense of truth. Resolving cognitive dissonance requires courage and introspection. It involves either changing behaviors to align with deeply held beliefs or adjusting those beliefs to reflect reality more accurately. Both paths demand confronting underlying fears, whether of loss, uncertainty, or inadequacy. By doing so, we foster authenticity, living in greater harmony with our values, rather than succumbing to denial or rationalization. This process not only alleviates mental tension, but also strengthens our capacity for growth and resilience. Speaking of alignment, let's explore attachment theory and its connection to one of humanity's most universal fears, abandonment. Take a deep breath and consider. What role does fear play in your closest relationships? How do early bonds shape the way we navigate love, trust, and vulnerability throughout our lives? Attachment theory, fear of abandonment. From infancy onward, humans are wired to crave connection. The bond between a child and their caregiver is one of the most fundamental aspects of early development, shaping how we relate to others for the rest of our lives. Yet, alongside this longing for closeness comes a persistent fear of losing those we love. Whether it's a parent leaving for work, a friend drifting away, or a partner growing distant, the specter of abandonment looms large in our emotional landscape. Why does this fear strike such a deep chord? What makes it so universal and so personal? Attachment theory, pioneered by psychologist John Bowlby, offers insight into this dynamic. It posits that early bonds with caregivers serve as blueprints for all future relationships. When caregivers provide consistent love and support, children develop secure attachments, fostering trust and resilience. However, when caregiving is inconsistent, alternating between warmth and neglect, it creates anxiety and insecurity. This inconsistency leaves an imprint, teaching the child to associate relationships with unpredictability and potential loss. As adults, these early experiences manifest as hypervigilance in relationships, where even minor signs of distance or disinterest can trigger intense fears of abandonment. This fear plays out differently depending on attachment style. Anxiously attached individuals may seek constant reassurance, fearing they're not enough to hold someone's attention. Avoidantly attached types, on the other hand, preemptively push others away, believing that maintaining emotional distance will protect them from rejection. Both patterns stem from the same root, a deep-seated dread of being left behind. Recognizing these behaviors allows us to reflect on past wounds and cultivate healthier connections, replacing old scripts with new ways of relating. Relationships aren't the only arena where fear intersects with existential questions. Let's broaden our scope and tackle one of life's biggest mysteries: mortality. What role does existential dread play in shaping our fears? How do we confront the ultimate unknown, the end of our own existence? Take a moment. What thoughts arise when you consider your place in the vastness of time? Existential dread, facing life's big questions. What happens after we die? Is there meaning to our existence? These questions have haunted humanity across cultures and centuries, cutting to the core of what it means to be human. Existential dread, the fear of life's inherent uncertainties, strikes at the heart of our search for purpose. It forces us to confront the vastness of the universe and the fleeting nature of our lives. How do we grapple with these profound unknowns without succumbing to despair? Existential dread arises when we acknowledge the weight of our freedom in an indifferent world. Philosophers like Søren Kierkegaard and Jean-Paul Sartre explored this tension, framing it as both a burden and a gift. On one hand, the realization that we must create our own meaning can feel liberating, an invitation to craft a life aligned with our values. On the other hand, it is terrifying because it strips away illusions of predetermined purpose or cosmic significance. The universe does not care about us, it simply exists. This stark truth forces us to reckon with our insignificance, amplifying fears of mortality, irrelevance, and impermanence. Yet, within this discomfort lies transformative potential. By embracing uncertainty, we open ourselves to creativity, curiosity, and deeper connections with others. Instead of avoiding existential dread, we can lean into it, using it as a catalyst for authentic living. For example, confronting the inevitability of death might inspire us to prioritize relationships, pursue passions, or contribute to something larger than ourselves. Fear becomes less a barrier and more a teacher, guiding us toward richer, more meaningful lives. But what if fear doesn't just stem from abstract ideas? It's embedded in the very symbols and stories we use to make sense of the world. Let's explore how horror movies tap into primal fears, offering catharsis through controlled exposure to terror. Take a moment to reflect. What scares you most in fiction, and why? Could those fears reveal deeper truths about your inner world? The power of symbols. Why horror movies? Haunt us from haunted houses to masked killers. Horror films thrive on universal fears that strike a chord deep within us. Yet, despite their chilling themes and terrifying imagery, millions flock to theaters or cozy up at home every year to experience fear vicariously. What is it about these symbolic manifestations of dread that captivates us so deeply? Why do we willingly subject ourselves to the goosebumps, racing hearts, and sleepless nights they inspire? Horror taps into archetypal fears, darkness, death, the unknown, that resonate across cultures and generations. These primal anxieties are part of our shared human experience, making them instantly relatable no matter where we come from or who we are. By externalizing these fears onto fictional monsters or scenarios, horror provides a safe space to process real-life concerns. For instance, zombies often symbolize societal collapse, reflecting anxieties about pandemics, economic instability, or environmental ruin. Vampires, with their seductive allure and insatiable hunger, may represent suppressed desires or the fear of losing control. Even haunted houses echo deeper fears of invasion, loss, or the lingering presence of unresolved trauma. Through metaphor and symbolism, horror allows us to confront these weighty issues indirectly, transforming abstract dread into tangible forms we can grapple with and ultimately overcome. This dual function of storytelling explains why horror remains so enduringly popular. On one hand, it lets us explore our darkest impulses without judgment, offering a mirror to the shadowy corners of our psyche. On the other hand, it fosters collective catharsis, reminding us that we're not alone in our fears. Watching others face unimaginable terrors, even if only on screen, creates a sense of solidarity, helping us feel connected to something larger than ourselves. While individual fears often feel isolating, some fears unite entire groups or divide them. Let's examine how groupthink amplifies collective fear, shaping societies in ways both constructive and destructive. Pause for a moment. Have you ever felt swept up in a shared panic? How did it change your perspective or your actions? Groupthink and collective fear. Imagine a crowded theater where someone shouts, "Fire!" Instantly, panic spreads like wildfire, even if no flames are visible. People rush for the exits, trampling one another in their desperation to escape. This phenomenon, groupthink, reveals how collective fear can override individual reasoning, leading to irrational behavior on a massive scale. But what happens when this dynamic unfolds, not just in confined spaces, but across entire societies? How does groupthink amplify collective fear, shaping decisions and actions with far-reaching consequences? Groupthink thrives in high-pressure situations where uncertainty reigns supreme. When people lack clear information or face ambiguous threats, they instinctively look to others for cues about how to behave. In doing so, they often prioritize consensus over critical thinking, adopting the emotions and actions of those around them, even when these responses are misguided or dangerous. Historical examples abound: stock market crashes driven by mass hysteria, witch hunts fueled by paranoia, and mob violence sparked by baseless rumors. Each case demonstrates how contagious fear can lead individuals to abandon logic, conforming instead to harmful norms or behaviors that escalate chaos. Yet, while groupthink can have catastrophic outcomes, it also underscores the power of social cohesion during genuine crises. Shared fears can galvanize communities, uniting people to address real threats such as pandemics, natural disasters, or systemic injustices. For instance, during times of widespread anxiety, coordinated efforts like mutual aid networks or public health campaigns highlight humanity's capacity to come together despite fear. The challenge lies in balancing unity with independent thought, ensuring that collective action is guided by reason rather than panic. Collective fears sometimes spiral beyond immediate concerns into moral panics, where society fixates on perceived threats that may be exaggerated or unfounded. Let's delve into how these societal nightmares take shape and what they reveal about cultural values. Consider, what fears dominate headlines today? Are they grounded in reality, or do they reflect deeper anxieties lurking beneath the surface? Moral panics, society's shared nightmares. Remember the satanic panic of the 1980s, when parents feared secret cults were corrupting children through heavy metal music, Dungeons and Dragons, or even daycare centers? Or the more recent hysteria around clowns during the creepy clown scare, where reports of menacing figures lurking near schools spread like wildfire across social media? These episodes reveal how moral panics grip societies, often targeting marginalized groups or misunderstood phenomena. But what drives these waves of collective fear, and why do they persist despite a lack of evidence? Moral panics arise when widespread anxiety coalesces around a specific issue, inflamed by sensationalized media coverage and inflammatory political rhetoric. They typically involve exaggerated claims, scapegoating, and calls for swift action to address perceived threats. For example, during the Satanic Panic, harmless activities like playing role-playing games became symbols of moral decay, while innocent individuals were falsely accused of heinous crimes. Similarly, the creepy clown scare turned benign sightings into national hysteria, fueled by viral videos and panicked warnings from authorities. Despite lacking credible evidence, these panics persist because they validate deeper societal anxieties about generational change, cultural shifts, or unfamiliar ideas. While moral panics may temporarily assuage collective fears by providing an external enemy to blame, they often cause significant harm. By perpetuating stereotypes and stigmatizing already vulnerable populations, they stifle progress and deepen divisions within society. Understanding their mechanisms helps us recognize when fear is being exploited for political gain or profit, empowering us to resist knee-jerk reactions and approach crises with greater clarity and compassion. Fear isn't limited to societal upheavals. It also infiltrates personal ambitions, manifesting as fear of failure. Let's explore how this pervasive fear holds us back and discover strategies to overcome it. Breathe deeply. What dreams have you hesitated to pursue out of fear? Could reframing failure transform your perspective and unlock new possibilities? Fear of failure. The silent epidemic. Failure feels like falling, a sudden, stomach-dropping plunge into embarrassment, disappointment, or rejection. It's a sensation most of us instinctively avoid. Yet what if failure isn't about the fall at all? What if it's more about staying grounded, paralyzed by the fear of falling in the first place? The fear of failure silently sabotages countless aspirations, keeping people trapped in comfort zones and preventing them from pursuing their dreams. But how does this pervasive fear take hold, and how can we break free? Fear of failure often stems from perfectionism, low self-esteem, or past traumas that have conditioned us to equate mistakes with inadequacy. This fear convinces us that errors are fatal, leading to behaviors like procrastination, avoidance, or overwork, anything to sidestep potential failure. Ironically, this mindset ensures stagnation rather than growth. By refusing to risk failure, we also deny ourselves opportunities for success, learning, and transformation. The very act of avoiding failure becomes its own form of defeat. Reframing failure as feedback shifts its significance entirely. Every misstep offers valuable lessons, building resilience and expertise over time. Thomas Edison famously said of his many failed attempts at inventing the light bulb, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." By normalizing imperfection and embracing uncertainty, we begin to see failure not as an endpoint, but as part of the journey. Courage doesn't mean eliminating fear. It means taking action despite it. When we normalize imperfection and focus on progress rather than perfection, we cultivate the courage to step outside our comfort zones and embrace challenges head-on. Courage begins in the brain. But which parts govern our responses to fear? Let's turn to neuroscience and uncover the role of the amygdala, fear's command center. Pause for a moment. Can you recall a time when your body reacted before your mind caught up? How might understanding the brain's mechanics help us better navigate fear? The amygdala, fear's command center. Deep within your brain lies a tiny almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Though small in size, it wields immense power, acting as the body's alarm system. A vigilant guard, always on the lookout for danger. But what happens when this alarm goes off too often, or at the wrong times? What role does the amygdala play in shaping our experience of fear, and how does its activity influence our lives? The amygdala plays a central role in processing emotions, particularly fear. When it detects a threat, whether real, like an approaching car, or imagined, like worrying about losing your job, it triggers an immediate cascade of physiological responses. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood the bloodstream, preparing the body for action by increasing heart rate, sharpening focus, and redirecting energy to muscles. This rapid response, known as the fight or flight reaction, is essential for survival, enabling us to react quickly to life-threatening situations. However, when the amygdala becomes overactive, misinterpreting harmless stimuli as dangers, it can lead to chronic anxiety, hypervigilance, or even panic disorders. Understanding the amygdala's function sheds light on why some individuals are more prone to fear than others. Trauma, genetics, and environmental factors can all sensitize the amygdala, making it hyperreactive to perceived threats. For example, someone who experienced childhood adversity may have an amygdala that remains perpetually on edge, interpreting everyday stresses as emergencies. Conversely, others may have a naturally calmer amygdala, allowing them to navigate challenges with greater ease. Learning to regulate its activity through mindfulness practices, cognitive behavioral therapy, or medication offers a path toward emotional balance. By calming the amygdala, we regain control over our fear responses, fostering resilience and clarity. While the amygdala initiates fear responses, our reactions vary widely depending on personality, upbringing, and circumstance. Let's explore the 4 primary ways humans respond to fear: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Pause for a moment. How do you typically react under pressure? Does your instinct drive you to confront, escape, shut down, or appease? Understanding these patterns can reveal profound insights into how you navigate the world and how you might adapt to face challenges more effectively. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. 4 responses to fear. Imagine encountering a bear in the woods. Would you run, flight, attack, fight, freeze in place, or try to appease the bear, fawn? These instinctual responses aren't just limited to life or death situations. They shape how we navigate everyday challenges, from tense conversations to high-stakes decisions. But what determines which response we choose, and why do our reactions vary so widely? Fight involves confronting the source of fear head-on, channeling adrenaline into action. It reflects confidence, assertiveness, and sometimes aggression, a strategy that can be effective when standing your ground is necessary. Flight, on the other hand, means escaping the threat entirely, prioritizing self-preservation over confrontation. This response works best when facing overwhelming odds or insurmountable obstacles. Freezing occurs when the body temporarily shuts down, conserving energy until the danger passes. While this might seem counterintuitive, freezing can prevent detection by predators or buy time to assess a situation before acting. Finally, fawning, less commonly discussed but equally significant, refers to seeking safety by pleasing or placating others. Rooted in survival instincts, fawning arises when cooperation appears to offer the best chance of avoiding harm. Each response reflects an adaptive strategy shaped by past experiences, temperament, and social conditioning. For instance, someone raised in a conflict-averse household might default to fawning, while another person with a history of overcoming adversity may lean toward fighting. No single response is inherently better. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. Freezing might protect against predators, but hinder performance in high-pressure scenarios like job interviews or public speaking engagements. Similarly, fawning can diffuse tension, but may lead to resentment if used excessively at the expense of personal boundaries. Recognizing your default response empowers you to adapt more effectively when faced with fear. By understanding these patterns, you can choose healthier alternatives that align with the demands of the moment rather than reacting impulsively. Fear isn't always a solo experience. It spreads rapidly between individuals. Let's examine mirror neurons, the brain's built-in mechanism for catching emotions from those around us. Take a deep breath. Have you ever felt someone else's panic ripple through you? How does shared fear influence group dynamics? And what role does empathy play in amplifying or calming collective anxiety? Mirror neurons, catching fear from others. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone seems tense, and suddenly you feel uneasy too? Or watched a horror movie and found yourself gripping the edge of your seat, even though you know it's fake? This phenomenon is driven by mirror neurons, specialized cells in the brain that allow us to catch emotions from those around us. These neurons create an invisible thread connecting our inner worlds, enabling us to share experiences without uttering a word. Mirror neurons fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. For example, if you see someone smile, your mirror neurons activate as though you're smiling yourself, evoking a similar emotional response. When it comes to fear, this mirroring effect helps us empathize with others' distress, creating a shared emotional experience. While beneficial for social bonding, allowing us to comfort or support one another, it can also amplify collective anxiety during crises. Think about how quickly panic spreads in crowded spaces, or how news of economic downturns triggers widespread dread. Mirror neurons make fear not just personal, but communal. Understanding mirror neurons highlights the contagious nature of emotions and their dual potential for harm and healing. On one hand, unchecked fear risks spreading panic unnecessarily, turning isolated incidents into mass hysteria. On the other hand, cultivating calmness and resilience within ourselves can have a ripple effect, positively influencing those around us. A single person radiating composure in a chaotic situation can steady an entire group, demonstrating the power of intentional emotional regulation. But what if fear could be tempered not just by logic, but by connection? Let's explore oxytocin, the hormone of trust and attachment, and its role in calming the fear response. Oxytocin fosters feelings of safety and belonging, counteracting the isolating effects of fear. Reflect for a moment. Who makes you feel safe? How might nurturing these connections help buffer against life's uncertainties? Oxytocin and trust, calming the fear response. Close your eyes and think about someone who makes you feel completely at ease, a partner, friend, or family member. That sense of security isn't just psychological, it's biological. Oxytocin, often dubbed the love hormone, plays a crucial role in reducing fear and fostering trust. This powerful neurotransmitter acts as a natural antidote to stress, promoting feelings of safety and connection that help counteract the isolating effects of fear. Oxytocin works by counteracting the influence of cortisol, the hormone responsible for our stress response. When oxytocin levels rise, it dampens the body's alarm system, calming the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and creating space for relaxation and emotional regulation. Everyday actions like physical touch, sustained eye contact, or meaningful conversations can boost oxytocin production, reinforcing bonds between individuals. For example, a warm hug from a loved one after a difficult day doesn't just comfort us emotionally, it triggers a cascade of hormonal changes that physically reduce stress. This explains why strong social connections are so vital for mental health, providing a buffer against life's inevitable uncertainties. The implications of this hormonal interplay extend far beyond individual well-being. By nurturing relationships and practicing acts of kindness, we naturally increase oxytocin production, not only within ourselves, but also in those around us. A simple gesture, like listening attentively or offering words of encouragement, has the power to foster trust and alleviate fear on both sides of the interaction. This underscores the importance of community and compassion, not only for personal resilience, but also for societal strength. In times of crisis, collective care becomes a lifeline, helping people navigate challenges with greater courage and unity. While oxytocin helps soothe transient fears, some traumas leave lasting scars, embedding fear deeply into the psyche. Let's delve into PTSD, a condition where fear becomes permanent, and explore pathways to healing. Pause for a moment. What memories still linger uneasily in your mind? How might understanding trauma reshape our approach to fear and recovery? PTSD, when fear becomes permanent. For individuals with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, fear doesn't fade. It lingers, haunting their thoughts, dreams, and daily lives. Imagine reliving a terrifying event every time a car backfires or a door slams shut. Ordinary moments become triggers, plunging them back into the chaos of trauma. How does this happen? What happens inside the brain when fear becomes permanent, trapping victims in cycles of dread? PTSD arises when the brain fails to process traumatic memories properly, leaving them raw and unresolved. Normally, the hippocampus, a region responsible for organizing and storing memories, helps contextualize events, placing them safely in the past. However, trauma disrupts this process, causing the hippocampus to shrink and lose functionality. Meanwhile, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, remains hyperactive, constantly scanning for threats and flooding the body with stress hormones like cortisol. This imbalance keeps the individual perpetually on high alert, even in safe environments. Symptoms such as flashbacks, hypervigilance, avoidance behaviors, and intrusive thoughts reflect the brain's struggle to reconcile what happened with the present moment. Healing from PTSD requires rewiring the brain's response to trauma, helping it reintegrate fragmented memories and restore equilibrium. Therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and exposure therapy aim to do just that. By gradually confronting traumatic memories in controlled settings, these approaches allow the brain to reprocess them, reducing their emotional charge and restoring a sense of safety. Medications targeting neurotransmitter imbalances may also help alleviate symptoms, offering additional support during recovery. Understanding PTSD not only highlights fear's profound impact, but also underscores the resilience of the human spirit. Even in the face of immense suffering, healing is possible through persistence, care, and connection. Resilience isn't just reserved for extreme cases. It's a skill anyone can cultivate. Let's explore neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself, and discover how we can harness this potential to overcome fear. Breathe deeply. What patterns would you like to rewrite in your own life? Could small intentional changes lead to lasting transformation? Neuroplasticity, rewiring the fearful brain. Imagine your brain as a garden, where neural pathways are like trails carved through thick underbrush. Every thought, emotion, and experience shapes these paths over time, reinforcing habits, beliefs, and responses. But what if you could prune old, fear-laden roots and forge new ones? What if the anxious patterns that once felt permanent could be reshaped into something healthier? This is the promise of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and rewire itself throughout life. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's capacity to form new neural connections even in adulthood. It allows us to overwrite maladaptive patterns, like chronic fear or anxiety, with healthier, more constructive responses. Practices such as mindfulness meditation, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and learning new skills stimulate this process by engaging different regions of the brain. For example, repeated exposure to feared situations can gradually weaken the amygdala's grip on our behavior, teaching the brain that these stimuli are no longer dangerous. Similarly, cultivating gratitude or compassion activates reward centers, creating positive feedback loops that counteract negativity bias. Harnessing neuroplasticity empowers us to take control of our mental landscapes. Whether we're overcoming phobias, managing anxiety, or healing from trauma, the key lies in consistent effort and patience. Change doesn't happen overnight. It requires small, intentional steps taken repeatedly over time. Each act of courage, each moment of self-compassion, reinforces the brain's capacity for growth and resilience. Over time, these incremental shifts accumulate, transforming how we perceive and respond to fear. The result is not just reduced suffering, but an expanded sense of possibility, a reminder that we are not prisoners of our past experiences. While neuroplasticity offers hope for rewiring fear, another part of the brain keeps us stuck in cycles of worry, the default mode network. Let's explore how this system perpetuates fear, even when there's no real threat. Pause for a moment. What worries tend to replay in your mind? Could understanding their origins help you quiet them? The default mode network, worrying without reason. Ever find yourself lying awake at night, spiraling through endless what-ifs? You're not alone. This tendency to ruminate stems from the default mode network, DMN, a brain system that becomes active during periods of rest and self-referential thinking. While the DMN plays an essential role in reflection, creativity, and planning, it can also trap us in loops of irrational fear, replaying past regrets, or catastrophizing about the future. The DMN becomes especially active when we're idle, those quiet moments when there's nothing external to occupy our attention. In these spaces, the mind often drifts toward unproductive worrying, magnifying perceived threats while minimizing available resources for coping. For instance, instead of seeing a looming deadline as manageable, the DMN might amplify it into an insurmountable crisis, fueling anxiety and stress. Over time, excessive activation of the DMN contributes to chronic anxiety and depression, as repetitive negative thoughts reinforce neural pathways associated with fear and hopelessness. Understanding the DMN's influence on our mental state offers insight into how we can reclaim control over our inner narratives. Mindfulness practices disrupt the DMN's dominance by shifting focus to the present moment, grounding us in sensory experiences rather than abstract worries. Techniques like meditation encourage non-judgmental awareness of thoughts, allowing them to pass without attachment. Journaling provides a structured outlet for processing emotions, while engaging in creative activities redirects attention toward constructive pursuits. By quieting the DMN, we create space for clarity and intentionality, breaking free from cycles of destructive thought patterns. Beyond mindfulness, certain neurotransmitters play a crucial role in regulating fear. Let's examine GABA and serotonin, the brain's natural anti-anxiety medications, and uncover how they influence our emotional states. Take a deep breath. How do you calm your racing thoughts? Could understanding the biological underpinnings of fear help you cultivate greater peace of mind? GABA and serotonin, nature's anti-anxiety meds. What if your brain came equipped with its own pharmacy? Enter GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, and serotonin, two neurotransmitters that act as nature's antidotes to fear and stress. These chemical messengers play vital roles in regulating mood, sleep, relaxation, and emotional balance. But what happens when their delicate equilibrium falters? Understanding these systems sheds light on how our bodies manage fear and how we can support them naturally. GABA functions as the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, calming excessive neuronal activity and promoting a sense of peace. It acts like a dimmer switch, reducing overstimulation in the nervous system and helping us feel grounded. Low levels of GABA are linked to heightened fear responses, anxiety disorders, and conditions like panic attacks or insomnia. Without sufficient GABA, the brain struggles to quiet itself, leaving us vulnerable to chronic stress and restlessness. Meanwhile, serotonin stabilizes emotions, fostering feelings of well-being and contentment. Often called the feel-good neurotransmitter, serotonin helps regulate everything from mood to digestion. Imbalances in serotonin contribute to mood disorders such as depression and persistent fear, underscoring its importance in maintaining mental health. Boosting GABA and serotonin naturally involves lifestyle changes that nurture both body and mind. Regular exercise enhances neurotransmitter production, while adequate sleep restores balance to the brain's chemistry. Dietary adjustments, like consuming foods rich in magnesium, which supports GABA function, or tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, can also make a significant difference. For severe cases, medications targeting these systems provide relief by mimicking their effects or supporting their production. Understanding the roles of GABA and serotonin highlights the interconnectedness of body and mind in managing fear, offering practical pathways to cultivate calmness and resilience. Fear doesn't vanish when we close our eyes. It often intensifies, manifesting as nightmares. Let's delve into the relationship between sleep and fear, exploring how dreams serve as a platform for processing unresolved emotions. Reflect for a moment. What haunts your dreams? Could decoding their messages help you confront lingering fears? Sleep and fear, nightmares, as emotional processing. Nightmares feel like intrusions, unwelcome visitors invading the sanctuary of sleep. They jolt us awake, hearts pounding, minds racing with fragments of unsettling imagery. Yet, despite their discomfort, nightmares may serve an important purpose, helping us process and integrate difficult emotions. Why does fear surface so vividly in dreams? What role do nightmares play in our emotional well-being? During REM, rapid eye movement sleep, the brain consolidates memories and processes emotions, including fear. This is when dreams and nightmares occur most frequently. Nightmares allow us to confront unresolved conflicts or traumas in a safe environment, offering a symbolic space to grapple with challenges without real-world consequences. For example, dreaming about being chased might reflect avoidance of a stressful situation, while falling could symbolize feelings of losing control. By working through these scenarios during sleep, the brain attempts to make sense of overwhelming emotions, integrating them into our broader understanding of ourselves. However, recurring nightmares signal that fear remains unprocessed, lingering just beneath the surface of waking life. Addressing nightmares requires tackling underlying fears head-on. Techniques like image rehearsal therapy encourage individuals to rewrite distressing dream scenarios, transforming terrifying visions into empowering narratives. For instance, someone haunted by a menacing figure in their dreams might reimagine the character as friendly or harmless. Improving overall sleep hygiene also reduces nightmare frequency, fostering deeper rest and recovery. Practices such as maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, reducing screen time before bed, and creating a calming pre-sleep routine help regulate the brain's activity, minimizing disruptions caused by stress or anxiety. But what if we could take charge of our dreams entirely? Lucid dreaming offers a unique opportunity to face fears consciously within the dreamscape. In this state, we become aware that we're dreaming, allowing us to interact intentionally with dream content. Let's explore this fascinating phenomenon and its potential for personal growth. Breathe deeply. What would it feel like to meet your fears in a dream? Could confronting them in this surreal yet safe realm unlock new levels of courage and self-awareness? Lucid dreaming, confronting fears in dreamscape. Picture this. You realize you're dreaming while still asleep. Suddenly, you have full awareness and control over the dream world. This state, known as lucid dreaming, provides a powerful arena for confronting fears safely. Imagine standing face to face with your deepest anxieties, not in the unpredictable chaos of real life, but within the malleable confines of a dream. How might harnessing this skill transform your relationship with fear? Lucid dreaming occurs when the conscious mind remains active during REM sleep, enabling deliberate interaction with dream content. In this state, practitioners can rehearse challenging scenarios, resolve lingering anxieties, or simply explore their subconscious creativity without real-world consequences. For example, someone afraid of public speaking might practice delivering a speech to an imaginary audience, gradually building confidence in a low-stakes environment. Similarly, fears rooted in past trauma can be revisited and reframed, allowing individuals to rewrite their internal narratives. The ability to manipulate the dreamscape empowers dreamers to turn threatening situations into opportunities for growth, transforming fear into mastery. By practicing courage in dreams, individuals build confidence that translates into waking life. Facing a nightmare head-on, perhaps by confronting a shadowy figure or escaping a collapsing building, teaches resilience and problem-solving skills that carry over into daily challenges. Additionally, lucid dreaming fosters insight into the subconscious drivers of fear, offering clarity about hidden emotions or unresolved conflicts. Mastering this skill requires patience and practice. Techniques like keeping a dream journal, performing reality checks throughout the day, and cultivating mindfulness can enhance one's ability to achieve lucidity. While the journey may take time, the rewards are profound, yielding benefits for mental health, emotional regulation, and personal development. While modern science deciphers fear's mechanics, ancient cultures expressed it through myths and legends. Let's journey back in time to uncover how mythology gave form to humanity's deepest terrors, and why these archetypes still resonate today. Pause for a moment. What monsters lurk in your imagination? Could they hold clues to understanding your own fears? Mythology and monsters. Ancient fears. Reimagined from the Minotaur of Crete to the Japanese Oni, mythologies across cultures brim with monstrous creatures that embody humanity's deepest fears. These ancient stories didn't just entertain, they served as mirrors reflecting societal anxieties, offering explanations for the unexplainable and providing a framework to process fear. What can these timeless tales teach us about fear today? How do they continue to resonate in our modern lives? Mythological monsters often symbolize existential threats, chaos, death, or the unknown, transforming abstract fears into tangible forms. For example, Medusa, with her petrifying gaze, represents the fear of losing control or being paralyzed by circumstances beyond our power. Dragons, towering and fire-breathing, signify overwhelming forces like natural disasters or oppressive rulers, reminding us of humanity's vulnerability in the face of immense power. By externalizing fears into physical entities, myths allowed people to confront them indirectly, making the incomprehensible more manageable. This act of storytelling provided not only catharsis, but also a sense of agency. Even if the monster couldn't be defeated, understanding its nature offered solace. Modern fears still manifest in symbolic ways, though their forms have evolved. Horror films feature serial killers, aliens, or artificial intelligence, contemporary reflections of societal concerns about safety, technology, and identity. Political rhetoric often demonizes outsiders or enemies, mirroring how ancient myths used monsters to represent chaos threatening order. Recognizing these patterns helps us decode contemporary anxieties and understand their roots. Moreover, engaging with myths fosters empathy for past generations who grappled with similar uncertainties, reminding us that fear is a universal human experience. While mythology externalizes fear, religion often seeks to exorcise it entirely. Let's explore how rituals and spiritual practices have been used throughout history to banish inner demons, and why they remain relevant today. Pause for a moment. What rituals bring you peace? Could they hold the key to transforming fear into healing? Religion and rituals. Exorcising demons. Within prayer beads clicking softly, incense wafting through the air, chants echoing in sacred spaces. Religious rituals offer solace amidst life's chaos. But what role do these practices play in confronting fear? How do they help individuals find meaning in suffering and transform overwhelming emotions into something manageable? At their core, rituals provide a structured way to process fear, offering both comfort and clarity. Religious traditions frame fear not as an enemy, but as a test of faith or an opportunity for spiritual growth. For example, rituals like confession allow participants to release guilt and doubt, symbolically unburdening themselves of inner turmoil. Meditation fosters stillness, helping practitioners observe their fears without judgment, while pilgrimages encourage reflection and renewal by stepping away from daily routines. These acts often involve repetition, chanting prayers, lighting candles, or bowing in reverence, which creates a rhythm that calms the mind and grounds the spirit. By engaging in ritual, individuals confront their fears indirectly, transforming abstract anxieties into tangible actions. This process fosters connection with the divine, with community, or even with oneself, creating a profound sense of belonging and purpose that counteracts feelings of isolation and despair. Even outside formal religious contexts, secular rituals serve similar functions. Lighting a candle during difficult times, journaling to process emotions, or marking milestones with personal ceremonies can ground individuals in moments of crisis. These practices highlight the universal appeal of ritual, transcending belief systems to address fundamental human needs. Understanding the psychological benefits of ritual underscores its power as a tool for navigating fear, whether through prayer, meditation, or simple daily habits that restore equilibrium. Unfortunately, not all uses of fear are benevolent. In the modern era, media outlets and corporations frequently exploit fear to capture attention and profit. Let's examine how fear is commodified and why it sells so effectively. Take a deep breath. How much of your newsfeed is driven by alarmist headlines? Could recognizing this manipulation empower you to resist its pull? Media manipulation, selling fear for profit, breaking news, crime rates soar. Scientists warn of impending disaster. Sensational headlines bombard us daily, designed to trigger our amygdalas and keep us glued to screens. These alarmist messages are no accident. They're crafted with precision to capture attention and drive engagement. Why does fear sell so effectively, and at what cost to our collective well-being? Fear is a powerful motivator, and media outlets have long understood its commercial value. By amplifying threats, whether real, exaggerated, or entirely fabricated, they secure clicks, shares, and ad revenue. This strategy exploits negativity bias, the brain's innate tendency to prioritize bad news over good. Evolutionarily, this bias helped our ancestors survive by staying alert to potential dangers. However, in the modern world, it leaves us vulnerable to manipulation. For example, a single alarming headline can overshadow countless positive stories, skewing our perception of reality and fostering a sense of perpetual crisis. The result? A population that feels perpetually on edge, scrolling endlessly for updates to quell their unease. While occasional alerts inform and protect, chronic exposure to fear-based messaging erodes mental health, fostering anxiety, mistrust, and even cynicism. Over time, we may become desensitized to genuine threats while remaining hypervigilant about trivial ones. Learning to discern credible information from clickbait empowers consumers to resist manipulation and cultivate healthier media habits. Strategies like limiting screen time, seeking out reputable sources, and reflecting critically on emotional reactions can help counteract the pervasive influence of sensationalism. By taking control of our media consumption, we reclaim agency over our thoughts and emotions. Media isn't the only arena where fear is weaponized. Politics often leverages public anxiety to consolidate power. Let's delve into how propaganda exploits fear to shape opinions and justify policies. Reflect for a moment. Which fears influence your vote? Could recognizing these tactics help you make more informed decisions? Political propaganda, weaponizing public anxiety. Throughout history, leaders have rallied citizens around shared fears, whether of foreign invaders, economic collapse, or moral decay. Fear has the unique ability to unite communities against a common threat, fostering solidarity and collective action. However, it also risks being misused as a tool to suppress dissent, enforce conformity, and consolidate power. How does propaganda manipulate collective fear, turning it into a weapon that shapes public opinion and policy? Propaganda simplifies complex issues into binary narratives, reducing nuanced debates to stark contrasts of us versus them. By stoking fear of outsiders, change, or uncertainty, politicians galvanize support for policies that might otherwise face scrutiny or resistance. Historical examples abound: wartime posters depicting enemy nations as monstrous figures, Cold War campaigns warning of communist infiltration, or modern rhetoric demonizing immigrants as existential threats. These strategies exploit primal instincts, framing opponents as dangers to safety, prosperity, or cultural identity. The goal is not just to persuade, but to provoke an emotional response, fear that overrides rational analysis. When people feel threatened, they are more likely to accept authoritarian measures, sacrifice freedoms, or scapegoat marginalized groups in exchange for the illusion of security. Resisting propaganda requires critical thinking and access to diverse perspectives. Understanding its tactics, such as oversimplification, dehumanization, and repetition, inoculates us against manipulation. By questioning the motives behind fear-based messaging and seeking out credible information, we can make informed decisions rather than succumbing to knee-jerk reactions. This awareness strengthens democracies, promoting accountability and safeguarding individual rights. It also reminds us of our responsibility to challenge divisive narratives that exploit fear for political gain. Fear doesn't always stem from grand narratives. It often lurks in whispers shared among friends. Urban legends thrive on intimate, localized fears, blending reality with fiction to reflect societal anxieties. Let's explore these modern myths and uncover what they reveal about contemporary concerns. Breathe deeply. What urban legend sends chills down your spine? Could it hold hidden truths about the fears we share today? Urban legends, modern tales of terror. Vanishing hitchhikers, cursed dolls, haunted houses. The stuff of urban legends continues to captivate our imaginations. These stories feel eerily close to home, unfolding in familiar settings like quiet suburbs, desolate highways, or abandoned buildings. Unlike ancient myths steeped in distant history, urban legends are grounded in the mundane, making them all the more unsettling. Why do these tales persist? And what do they reveal about our collective psyche? Urban legends reflect societal fears, adapting to the anxieties of their time. For instance, Slender Man, a modern creation born on internet forums, embodies fears about online predators and the darker corners of digital culture. Tales of haunted smartphones or cursed apps tap into unease about technology's invasive presence in our lives. Similarly, stories of abandoned asylums or factories echo concerns about urban decay, isolation, and humanity's forgotten past. Their oral nature, passed down through word of mouth, social media, or campfire retellings, ensures constant evolution. Each generation adds its own twist, keeping urban legends fresh yet familiar, timeless yet relevant. By examining urban legends, we gain insight into cultural preoccupations and collective insecurities. They often serve as mirrors, reflecting hidden fears we might not otherwise acknowledge. For example, tales of shadowy figures lurking outside windows may symbolize paranoia about safety in an increasingly interconnected world. Beyond their symbolic value, urban legends remind us of storytelling's enduring power to process fear collaboratively. Sharing these tales transforms private dread into communal catharsis, fostering connection through shared unease. As technology advances, new fears emerge, particularly around privacy and surveillance. Let's investigate the growing unease surrounding data collection and digital footprints, asking whether convenience comes at too high a cost. Pause for a moment. Do you ever wonder who's watching? Could your own devices be both tools and threats, shaping how you navigate trust in the digital age? Technology and surveillance. Fear of losing privacy. Every time you browse the internet, use an app, or swipe your credit card, data trails are left behind, often without your full awareness. These digital footprints accumulate in vast databases, analyzed by algorithms, corporations, and sometimes governments. The rise of surveillance technologies has sparked widespread concern about privacy erosion. But why does this loss of control over personal information evoke such deep-seated fear? What is it about being watched that feels so inherently threatening? Fear of losing privacy stems from a fundamental human need for autonomy and boundaries. Privacy allows us to define who we are, free from external judgment or interference. Surveillance undermines these by creating a pervasive sense that we're constantly being watched, judged, or exploited. Technologies like facial recognition systems, smart devices with always-on microphones, and social media algorithms exacerbate this unease. They blur the line between convenience and intrusion, making it difficult to know where utility ends and exploitation begins. For example, while smart speakers simplify daily tasks, they also raise questions about how much of our private conversations are recorded and who might have access to them. This tension leaves many feeling vulnerable, as though their lives are no longer entirely their own. This fear isn't unfounded. Breaches of trust have real consequences, from identity theft and financial fraud to political manipulation and societal division. High-profile scandals involving data misuse have only heightened public anxiety. However, rejecting all technology isn't practical or desirable for most people. Instead, fostering digital literacy and advocating for ethical tech practices can empower individuals to reclaim agency over their data. Understanding how platforms collect and use information, adjusting privacy settings, and supporting regulations that prioritize transparency can help restore a sense of control. While surveillance fears focus on individual privacy, another collective anxiety looms large: the fate of our planet. Let's explore climate change anxiety and why it resonates so deeply across generations. Take a moment to reflect. What thoughts arise when you consider the future of Earth? Could addressing one global crisis inspire solutions for others? Climate change anxiety. The fear of a dying planet. Wildfires rage, glaciers melt, oceans rise. Images of environmental destruction dominate headlines, fueling a growing sense of dread. Climate change anxiety isn't just about fearing natural disasters. It's about grappling with humanity's role in shaping and potentially saving the planet. This existential fear cuts deep, forcing us to confront not only the fragility of Earth, but also our own complicity in its degradation. How do we cope with an issue so vast and complex that it often feels insurmountable? Climate change anxiety arises from a potent mix of helplessness, guilt, and uncertainty about the future. Unlike immediate dangers like car accidents or fires, climate impacts unfold gradually, making them harder to address proactively. Rising temperatures may seem abstract until they manifest as extreme weather events, food shortages, or displaced communities. For younger generations, the burden is particularly acute. They inherit a crisis they didn't create yet are expected to solve. The weight of this responsibility can lead to feelings of anger, despair, or even paralysis. Compounding these emotions is the knowledge that individual actions, while important, feel insignificant compared to systemic failures perpetuated by industries and governments. Transforming anxiety into action is key to navigating this challenge. Engaging in sustainable practices, whether reducing waste, adopting renewable energy, or supporting local ecosystems, offers tangible ways to contribute. Advocating for policy changes amplifies impact, pushing leaders to prioritize long-term solutions over short-term gains. Connecting with like-minded communities fosters solidarity, reminding us we're not alone in this fight. By reframing climate change as both a challenge and an opportunity for innovation, creativity, and global cooperation, we shift from despair to empowerment. Small victories build momentum, proving that collective effort can drive meaningful change. Climate threats may unfold slowly, but pandemics strike suddenly, exposing vulnerabilities in global systems. Let's examine lessons from history and explore how societies respond to outbreaks, and what fears linger long after the crisis subsides. Pause for a moment. What memories of past pandemics still linger in your mind? Could understanding these patterns help us prepare for future challenges? Pandemics and panic. Lessons from history. From the Black Death in the 14th century to the global upheaval caused by COVID-19, pandemics have reshaped civilizations, leaving scars not only on bodies but also on psyches. Fear spreads faster than any virus, amplifying chaos and testing societal cohesion. Entire communities have been upended as people grappled with uncertainty, loss, and the breakdown of normalcy. What can history teach us about managing fear during public health crises? How do we balance survival instincts with compassion and reason? Pandemics trigger primal fears: fear of contagion, fear of death, and fear of isolation, that tap into humanity's deepest vulnerabilities. Historical responses reveal our dual capacity for cooperation and division. Quarantine measures, though necessary, often sparked resistance or panic, while scapegoating marginalized groups became a common yet destructive outlet for collective anxiety. For instance, during the Black Death, Jewish communities were falsely accused of spreading disease, leading to widespread persecution. Similarly, misinformation has consistently compounded fear, whether through rumors in medieval times or viral conspiracy theories in the digital age. Clear communication and strong leadership emerge as critical tools for calming panic and guiding societies through crises. When information is scarce or contradictory, fear fills the void, driving irrational behavior and eroding trust. Lessons from past pandemics emphasize the value of preparedness, solidarity, and scientific advancement. Understanding how fear influences behavior helps mitigate its destructive effects, fostering resilience and preventing future crises from spiraling out of control. Investments in healthcare infrastructure, equitable resource distribution, and education build buffers against panic, ensuring that societies respond with unity rather than division. By learning from history, we can transform fear into action, creating systems that protect both physical and mental well-being. As we recover from pandemics, new anxieties emerge, this time centered on rapid technological advancements. Let's delve into fears surrounding artificial intelligence and automation, asking whether progress threatens to outpace human adaptability. Breathe deeply. What aspects of AI make you uneasy? Could understanding these fears help us navigate the intersection of innovation and ethics? AI and automation. Fear of the future robots, replacing jobs, algorithms dictating decisions, sentient machines surpassing human intelligence. The rise of artificial intelligence, AI, sparks visions of dystopia that feel straight out of science fiction. But how much of this fear is grounded in reality, and how much stems from exaggerated portrayals in movies and media? As AI continues to reshape industries and redefine what it means to work, live, and interact, untangling fact from fiction becomes essential to confronting its true implications. AI and automation promise unprecedented efficiency, innovation, and economic growth, but they also raise legitimate concerns about job displacement, ethical dilemmas, and loss of control. Will robots render entire professions obsolete? Can we trust algorithms to make fair and unbiased decisions? And what happens if AI systems evolve beyond our ability to manage them? These fears echo anxieties from earlier industrial revolutions, when mechanization sparked similar worries about livelihoods and societal disruption. History shows that while transitions were often painful, societies adapted, creating new opportunities and redefining prosperity. Yet, the rapid pace of AI advancements leaves many wondering whether this time might be different. Rather than resisting change, embracing lifelong learning and redefining work-life balance can ease the transition. Governments, Businesses and individuals must collaborate to prepare for shifts in labor markets, ensuring equitable access to education and resources. Ethical guidelines and transparent governance are crucial to ensuring AI serves humanity rather than dominating it. By focusing on collaboration rather than competition, we harness AI's potential responsibly, using it as a tool to enhance creativity, solve global challenges, and improve quality of life. While AI inspires rational debate, conspiracy theories thrive on irrational fears. Let's explore why humans seek patterns in chaos, and how misinformation exploits this tendency to spread distrust and paranoia. Reflect for a moment. Which conspiracy theory have you encountered recently? Could understanding its roots help us combat the spread of fear-driven falsehoods? Conspiracy theories. Finding patterns in chaos. Moon landings faked, secret cabals ruling the world, shadowy organizations pulling strings. Conspiracy theories abound in times of uncertainty. They offer elaborate explanations for events that seem inexplicable or overwhelming, drawing people into narratives that feel both compelling and dangerous. But why do some individuals cling to these theories, even when evidence contradicts them? What purpose do these narratives serve in the human psyche? Conspiracy theories appeal to our innate need for order and meaning, especially during periods of chaos or fear. When faced with uncertainty, whether it's a global pandemic, economic collapse, or political upheaval, attributing events to hidden forces provides a sense of control, however illusory. Instead of accepting randomness or complexity, conspiracy theories impose structure, suggesting that someone or something is orchestrating events behind the scenes. Cognitive biases further reinforce belief in such theories. For example, confirmation bias leads people to seek out information that supports their pre-existing views while dismissing evidence that challenges them. Similarly, pattern recognition, the brain's ability to detect connections between unrelated phenomena, can trick us into seeing conspiracies where none exist. These mental shortcuts make conspiracy theories seductive, offering simple answers to complicated questions. Understanding the psychology behind conspiracy theories highlights the importance of critical thinking and empathy. Rather than dismissing believers outright, which often entrenches their views, addressing underlying fears and fostering dialogue can bridge divides. By acknowledging the emotional needs these narratives fulfill, we create opportunities to combat misinformation without alienating those who feel vulnerable. Promoting media literacy, encouraging open discourse, and addressing societal anxieties help counteract the spread of baseless claims while preserving trust and understanding. Confronting fear requires more than intellectual analysis. It demands action. Let's turn our attention to exposure therapy, a technique designed to desensitize individuals to their deepest fears. Through gradual, controlled confrontation, this method transforms terror into tolerance. Pause for a moment. What fear would you face if you knew you couldn't fail? Could taking the first step toward overcoming it unlock new possibilities in your life? Exposure therapy. Staring down your demons. Imagine standing at the edge of a swimming pool, paralyzed by the thought of diving in. The water seems impossibly deep, the act unbearably daunting. Now picture yourself taking small steps, first dipping your toes, then wading deeper until you're fully submerged. This gradual approach mirrors exposure therapy, a powerful psychological tool for overcoming fear. But how does facing our fears head-on lead to liberation? What makes this method so transformative? Exposure therapy involves systematically confronting feared objects, situations, or memories in a controlled and safe environment. Instead of avoiding what terrifies us, a short-term solution that only reinforces anxiety, we lean into it incrementally. For example, someone with a fear of heights might start by looking at pictures of tall buildings before progressing to standing on a balcony or riding an elevator. By repeatedly exposing themselves to the source of fear without retreating, the brain begins to rewire its response. Over time, the perceived threat loses its intensity as the amygdala learns that no real danger exists. This process not only reduces anxiety, but also builds confidence, proving that we are capable of enduring discomfort and emerging stronger. While initially uncomfortable, exposure therapy fosters resilience by rewiring neural pathways associated with fear. It teaches valuable skills like patience, self-compassion, and perseverance, reminding us that growth often requires stepping outside our comfort zones. Whether tackling phobias, processing trauma, or navigating social anxieties, exposure therapy offers a path toward freedom, one small step at a time. Each victory, no matter how minor, reinforces the belief that fear is not an insurmountable barrier, but a challenge to be met and managed. Facing fear directly is one approach, but what about observing it from a distance? Let's explore mindfulness meditation, a practice that encourages non-judgmental awareness of fear as it arises. Rather than resisting or reacting to it, we learn to sit with our emotions, creating space for clarity and calm. Take a deep breath. What would it feel like to simply watch your fears without reacting? Could this shift in perspective help you relate to fear differently? Mindfulness meditation. Observing fear. Without judgment. Fear often feels like an overwhelming force, a tidal wave threatening to sweep us away, leaving us gasping for air. But what if we could step back and simply observe it instead of being consumed by its currents? Mindfulness meditation invites us to do just that, cultivating a compassionate relationship with our inner experiences. Rather than fighting fear or letting it control us, mindfulness teaches us to meet it with curiosity and acceptance, transforming how we relate to this powerful emotion. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment with openness and non-judgmental awareness. When fear arises, whether as a racing heart, a cascade of anxious thoughts, or a sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, practitioners learn to acknowledge its presence without trying to resist or suppress it. This detachment doesn't mean ignoring fear. Rather, it means recognizing it as a temporary sensation, one that will pass like clouds drifting across the sky. By observing fear from a distance, we weaken its grip on our minds, creating space for clarity and calmness to emerge. Instead of identifying with fear, "I am afraid," we see it for what it truly is, a passing experience that does not define us. Regular mindfulness practice not only reduces anxiety, but also enhances emotional regulation and self-awareness. Over time, we begin to reframe fear as something transient rather than permanent, a fleeting storm rather than an unending winter. This shift fosters resilience and equanimity, enabling us to navigate life's challenges with greater grace and perspective. We learn that fear doesn't have to dictate our actions. Instead, it can coexist alongside courage and wisdom. Mindfulness highlights the fluid nature of fear. But how does courage fit into the equation? Are courage and fear truly opposites, or are they two sides of the same coin? Let's unpack this paradox and discover how embracing fear can actually strengthen our resolve. Pause for a moment. When have you felt both afraid and brave? Could leaning into fear unlock deeper reservoirs of strength within you? Courage versus fear. A false dichotomy. We often think of courage as the absence of fear, a state where bravery triumphs over trepidation, leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. But what if courage isn't about eliminating fear at all? What if true courage means acting despite fear's presence, embracing it as an integral part of the journey? Could fear and courage coexist, working together to propel us forward rather than holding us back? Courage doesn't mean feeling fearless. It means choosing to move forward even when fear is present. Consider firefighters rushing into burning buildings, activists speaking out against injustice, or parents navigating the uncertainties of raising children. These acts aren't performed in a vacuum of calm. They're fueled by fear, but also by purposeful determination. Fear becomes the spark that ignites action, pushing individuals to rise above their instincts for self-preservation in service of something greater. Courage isn't the opposite of fear, it's its companion, transforming paralysis into momentum and anxiety into resolve. Recognizing this false dichotomy reframes fear as a catalyst rather than an obstacle. Instead of waiting for fear to vanish before pursuing our goals, we learn to harness its energy constructively. For instance, public speakers who feel nervous before taking the stage can channel that adrenaline into passion and focus, delivering more compelling performances. This perspective empowers us to take bold steps, knowing that fear is not a sign of weakness, but a natural response to risk and growth. By accepting fear as part of the process, we free ourselves from the illusion that we must be fearless to be courageous. Courage thrives on resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward. Let's delve into resilience and uncover how adversity shapes our capacity to endure and grow. Breathe deeply. What challenges have made you stronger? How might those experiences prepare you to face future fears with even greater strength? Resilience, building strength. Through adversity. Life rarely follows a straight path. Obstacles inevitably arise, testing our limits and challenging our resolve. Yet, some individuals seem to not only endure these trials, but thrive under pressure, emerging stronger and wiser after hardship. What sets them apart? How does resilience transform fear into fortitude, enabling us to rise above life's inevitable storms? Resilience is the ability to adapt and recover from adversity, turning setbacks into opportunities for growth. It's not an innate trait reserved for the lucky few. It's a skill that can be cultivated through experience, mindset, and support systems. Optimism plays a key role, allowing individuals to view challenges as temporary rather than insurmountable. Strong social connections provide emotional scaffolding, reminding us we're not alone in our struggles. Problem-solving skills help break down overwhelming problems into manageable steps, while a sense of purpose fuels motivation, giving meaning to even the toughest battles. Each challenge faced builds mental toughness, creating a reservoir of strength that prepares us for future trials. Like a muscle, resilience grows stronger with use, proving that adversity, though painful, can be a powerful teacher. Cultivating resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning to navigate it effectively. Strategies like reframing negative thoughts. This is hard, but I've overcome difficult things before. Seeking help when needed, and practicing gratitude foster resilience by shifting focus from what's lost to what remains or can be gained. By embracing adversity as a teacher rather than an enemy, we unlock hidden reserves of strength and wisdom. Pain becomes a catalyst for transformation, revealing depths within ourselves we might never have discovered otherwise. Resilience enables us to persevere. But what happens when we transcend fear altogether? Flow states offer a glimpse into this possibility, where complete immersion in an activity dissolves anxiety and self-doubt. Let's explore how flow allows us to rise above fear and achieve peak performance. Reflect for a moment. When have you been so absorbed in an activity that fear vanished? Could tapping into flow help you face challenges with greater ease? Flow states, transcending fear through focus. Ever lost track of time while painting, playing music, or solving a complex problem? In these moments, fear fades away, replaced by pure engagement. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called this state flow, describing it as an optimal experience where we are fully immersed in the present moment. But how does flow help us transcend fear? What makes this state so transformative? Flow occurs when our skill level matches the challenge at hand, creating a delicate balance between effort and enjoyment. When we enter flow, the mind becomes absorbed in the task, silencing internal chatter, including doubts, anxieties, and fears. The ego dissolves, leaving no room for self-criticism or worry about outcomes. Instead, we focus entirely on the process, trusting our abilities to navigate the challenge before us. Neurochemically, flow triggers the release of dopamine and endorphins, which enhance pleasure, boost motivation, and reduce stress. This biochemical cocktail creates a sense of calm and clarity, allowing us to perform at our best without being hindered by fear. Accessing flow regularly not only boosts creativity, productivity, and overall well-being, but also provides a reliable way to manage fear. By identifying activities that induce flow, whether it's writing, coding, dancing, or gardening, we create safe spaces where fear has no foothold. Moreover, understanding the mechanics of flow helps us design environments conducive to peak performance. For instance, eliminating distractions, setting clear goals, and ensuring tasks align with our skills can increase the likelihood of entering this state. Over time, flow becomes a tool for resilience, teaching us how to channel energy into action rather than letting fear hold us back. Flow demonstrates how focus can quiet fear, but creativity takes this further, using fear as fuel for innovation. Let's examine the dynamic interplay between creativity and fear, exploring how uncertainty inspires groundbreaking ideas. Pause for a moment. What unknowns excite and terrify you simultaneously? Could leaning into that tension unlock new possibilities within you? Creativity and fear. Dancing with the unknown. Creativity thrives on risk-taking, venturing into uncharted territory, where failure looms large and uncertainty reigns. Yet many artists, writers, and innovators credit fear not as an obstacle, but as a driving force behind their work. Why does fear spark creativity, and how can we embrace it rather than shy away? What lies at the intersection of vulnerability and imagination? Fear pushes creators to confront vulnerabilities, question assumptions, and experiment boldly. It forces them to step beyond comfort zones, exploring uncharted emotional or intellectual landscapes that yield fresh perspectives. The tension between safety and exploration fuels originality, pushing boundaries and challenging norms. For example, Vincent van Gogh's turbulent emotions, his fears, anxieties, and inner turmoil infused his paintings with raw intensity, transforming personal dread into timeless beauty. Similarly, authors like Mary Shelley channeled existential fears into groundbreaking works such as Frankenstein, exploring humanity's deepest questions through fiction. Fear becomes a catalyst for creation, urging us to wrestle with the unknown and give form to what feels intangible. By reframing fear as a creative ally rather than an adversary, we open ourselves to new possibilities. Techniques like brainstorming without judgment, improvisation in art or music, and embracing imperfection encourage risk-taking without attachment to outcomes. This mindset shifts our focus from avoiding mistakes to valuing process over product, fostering innovation and self-expression. When we allow ourselves to dance with fear instead of resisting it, we tap into its energy, turning anxiety into inspiration. Creative acts become not just expressions of individuality, but also acts of courage, reminding us that growth often emerges from discomfort. Creativity connects us to ourselves, but empathy connects us to others. Let's explore how compassion and connection heal wounds caused by fear, fostering unity and understanding. Breathe deeply. Who in your life has shown you kindness during fearful times? Could cultivating empathy help bridge divides and dissolve fears rooted in isolation? Empathy and compassion. Healing through connection. Fear often isolates us, convincing us that we're alone in our struggles. It whispers that no one else understands our pain or shares our vulnerabilities. But what if connection could dissolve fear? What if reaching out to others and allowing ourselves to be reached could transform fear into healing? Empathy and compassion serve as bridges, reminding us of our shared humanity and dissolving the walls fear builds around us. Empathy involves understanding another person's emotions, stepping into their shoes without judgment. Compassion goes a step further, motivating us to take action to alleviate suffering. Together, these qualities foster deep connections, releasing oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and reducing stress hormones like cortisol. When we feel seen, heard, and supported, fear loses its grip. Isolation gives way to trust, and alienation transforms into belonging. For example, a simple act of listening to a friend in distress can validate their experience, helping them process fear instead of being consumed by it. Similarly, when we open ourselves to receive care, we acknowledge our own vulnerability, creating space for healing rather than shame. Practicing empathy and compassion not only benefits others, but also strengthens our own resilience. By shifting focus from self-protection to mutual care, we break cycles of fear-driven isolation. Acts of kindness, even small ones, like offering a smile or lending an ear, create ripple effects, fostering collective well-being and unity. In moments of fear, leaning on community reminds us that we are stronger together. Compassion becomes a two-way bridge. Giving support reinforces our sense of purpose, while receiving it reaffirms our worth. While connection heals, some fears require surrender rather than action. Let's explore the power of acceptance, learning to let go of what we cannot control. Pause for a moment. What aspects of your life feel beyond your influence? Could embracing acceptance bring peace where resistance once reigned? Acceptance and surrender. Letting go of what you can't control. Imagine standing on a beach, trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. The waves crash relentlessly, indifferent to your efforts. This futile struggle mirrors how we often approach fear, resisting what we cannot change, exhausting ourselves in the process. But what happens when we choose acceptance instead? What if surrendering to uncertainty could bring peace rather than defeat? Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or giving up. It means acknowledging reality without judgment. It's about recognizing that some things lie beyond our control and choosing not to fight against them. For instance, worrying about the weather won't stop a storm, just as obsessing over past mistakes won't rewrite history. Surrendering to uncertainty frees us from the exhausting battle against forces outside our influence, allowing us to redirect energy toward what truly matters. Practices like mindfulness teach us to observe thoughts and emotions without clinging to them, while cognitive reframing helps shift focus from fixing problems to embracing them as part of life's unfolding journey. Acceptance invites us to meet life where it is, rather than where we wish it to be. This mindset reduces unnecessary suffering by aligning expectations with reality. Instead of wasting energy on what we can't control, we empower ourselves to take meaningful action within our sphere of influence. By surrendering to the unknown, we cultivate peace and clarity, trusting that even challenges carry lessons worth learning. Fear thrives on resistance, but acceptance disarms it, transforming struggle into serenity. Letting go opens space for gratitude, a powerful antidote to fear. Let's examine how shifting perspective transforms fear into appreciation, illuminating the beauty hidden within adversity. Breathe deeply. What blessings might you be overlooking amidst your fears? Could gratitude help you see challenges not as burdens, but as opportunities for growth? Gratitude, flipping fear into appreciation. Gratitude turns the lens inward, focusing on what we have rather than what we lack. In moments of fear, this simple yet profound shift can reframe despair into hope, transforming how we perceive and respond to challenges. But how does cultivating gratitude alter our relationship with fear? What makes it such a powerful antidote to anxiety and uncertainty? Gratitude activates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine and serotonin, neurochemicals that counteract feelings of anxiety and depression. When we consciously acknowledge positives, even amid hardship, we train ourselves to see opportunities rather than obstacles. For example, surviving a storm makes sunshine feel sweeter. Overcoming illness heightens appreciation for health. Gratitude reframes fear by reminding us of our resilience and the resources we already possess. It shifts attention away from what could go wrong and redirects it toward what is already right, grounding us in the present moment. This practice not only alleviates immediate distress, but also fosters a mindset of abundance, helping us recognize blessings even in difficult times. Regular gratitude practices, including journaling, reflection, or verbal expressions of thanks, strengthen resilience and optimism over time. Writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day, no matter how small, trains the brain to notice positivity more readily. Expressing gratitude to others deepens relationships, fostering reciprocity and goodwill. Over time, gratitude becomes a habit, rewiring the brain to default to positivity rather than negativity. Instead of dwelling on fears of loss or failure, we focus on the richness of what remains. Supportive relationships, personal strengths, or simple joys like laughter or nature. As we conclude this exploration of fear, let's reflect on its role as both a guide and a teacher. Fear need not imprison us. It can illuminate paths to growth and transformation. Let's bring this journey full circle. Take a moment. How has fear shaped your life? Could gratitude help you view fear not as an enemy, but as a catalyst for deeper understanding and connection? Conclusion: fear is a guide, not a prison. We began this journey by acknowledging fear's primal roots, a survival mechanism honed over millennia to protect us from harm. Along the way, we've uncovered its complexities, contradictions, and profound potential for growth. Fear is not merely an instinct. It is a teacher, shaping our decisions, relationships, and sense of self. Now, as we close, let's reimagine fear not as an enemy, but as a wise companion, guiding us toward deeper truths about who we are and what we value. Fear arises to protect us, signaling danger or uncertainty in our lives. Yet, unchecked, it can trap us in patterns of avoidance, stagnation, and limitation. When we resist fear or allow it to control us, it becomes a prison, narrowing our choices and dimming our possibilities. However, when we embrace fear as a teacher, we unlock its transformative power. Whether through acts of courage, bursts of creativity, moments of connection, or practices of gratitude, fear becomes a catalyst for evolution rather than confinement. It pushes us to confront discomfort, question assumptions, and expand beyond perceived limits, revealing strengths we might never have discovered otherwise. This reframing invites us to live authentically, facing challenges with openness and curiosity instead of resistance and dread. Fear reminds us of our vulnerability, but also of our resilience. By honoring its presence without letting it dictate our choices, we step into lives rich with meaning and purpose. We learn that fear doesn't diminish us, it deepens us, urging us to grow in ways we could never anticipate. Take a deep breath and notice how far you've come. Fear will always be part of the human experience, but now you know it doesn't have to define you. As you drift off to sleep or simply relax, carry this newfound understanding with you. Let fear guide you gently, knowing you are capable of navigating whatever lies ahead. You are stronger than your fears, yet wise enough to listen to them. In their whispers, you'll find not only warnings, but also invitations to explore, to connect, and to become more fully alive.